everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Ravens Call. I'm your host, Tyler Cameron, as always. If you haven't already, or don't know what this podcast consists of, you can go to my 1-minute intro video explaining the podcast, or you can just follow along week by week as we start getting closer to playoffs and a lot of teams being eliminated, a lot of people staying in the hunt for getting into that playoff spot this year. Some surprising teams, some interesting Super Bowl contenders that we'll go over here in a minute. This podcast is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, as well as YouTube. You can find all the links to the streaming services in each of the streaming services, or you can find it on my Instagram page, The Ravens Call Podcast. I'll be posting every Wednesday at 12 to let you know that the episode is up. So go check that out. On that note, I hope everyone is having a great Wednesday and ready to listen to some exciting NFL and Baltimore Ravens news. All right. So we had a good amount of games, very dominating performances by some playoff teams, and some games where there were a lot of must-wins to stay alive for the season that, panned out for some teams and didn't pan out. But let's go over it. So we had a great Thursday night game in Green Bay versus the Lions. This was a very close game. I really thought that the Packers were going to pull this off, but sadly they didn't. So my upset pick was not right. Let's go over Green Bay. Green Bay didn't look as good in the first quarter, but then was able to kind of step it up in the second half of the game and just really was going on a rampage. Jordan Love, 12-20, 206 yards and touchdown. Was only sacked once. A pretty good QB rating. They just weren't able to effectively diversify it a lot of the times. They did get some help from the defense. But Josh Jacobs, 18 carries, 66 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Another great game from him. Jordan Love was able to run for 23. The receiving game wasn't really there. Jaden Reed wasn't there. Dobbs was out. Tucker Kraft, 3 receptions, 41 yards, a touchdown. Dominic Wicks, 4 receptions, 49 yards. And Christian Watson, 4 receptions, 114 yards. So that was really the catalyst for them, was the run game and then their couple passing downs on that. But they were able to stay in this game. They're up, I think it was 31-31 when Detroit decided to play a ballsy play and go for it on 4th down and give it to Danny Campbell for doing that. They were able to kick the field goal and win the game. But let's go over to Detroit. Jared Goff, 32 of 41, 283 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. David Montgomery and Gibbs weren't as dominant as they normally are. Montgomery had 51 yards and Gibbs had 43, which, that's not too bad, but, these guys are pretty dynamic duo when it comes to running the ball. So normally one of them has a 100-yard game, but still able to run the ball for 111 yards. Receiving game, Jameson Williams, 5 receptions, 80 yards. Sam Laporta, 5 receptions, 51 yards. Tim Patrick showed up when they needed him most with 2 touchdowns. And, Detroit goes to 12-1, 6-1 at home. Packers are 9-4, but very close game. This could be a game that we see going forward into the playoffs and maybe even into, one of the playoff games where they face each other again. So it will be a very interesting game going forward for them. Very excited to see what happens there, but Detroit gets the lead and stays the best team in the NFL for this time being. Now on to the Sunday slew of games. I'm not really going to go over the Jaguars-Titans game. Jaguars were 2-10. Titans were 3-9. It was a terrible game for both teams. Both teams really need to rethink what they're going to be doing here in the draft. And yeah, that's kind of what I would be looking towards, because it was a bad game for Jaguars and Titans. Jaguars won 10-6, scored 10 points in the 4th quarter. It was a terrible game for both quarterbacks, for both teams. On to another great game, which was the Jets and Dolphins. See, the Dolphins needed this game because they want to stay in the playoff hunt going forward, which they do have some tough matchups coming up here in the future, so it will be tough for them to make the playoffs, but it all depends on the Chargers, the Ravens, and the Broncos, it's theirs to lose at this point. But let's go over the game. Dolphins won 32-26. They won with the first possession with the touchdown in overtime. But let's go over the Jets side of things. Aaron Rodgers, 27-39, 339 yards and a touchdown. His first 300-yard game I believe as a Jet. Yeah. Running game was not really there. It was more in the pass game. Garrett Wilson, 7 receptions, 114 yards. Devontae Adams, 9 receptions, 109 yards and a touchdown. It was a good game offensively for them. They were able to do no wrong. Really, we're coasting. It was 23-15 going into the fourth quarter, and the Jets kind of just dropped the ball towards the end, thought that they had the game in the bag, and they really didn't. Let's go into Miami. Tua's played extremely well since coming back. They will be a tough team to be facing, but they do have some tough matchups, and maybe a little too late type of aspect, but we'll go over that later. Tua Tagovailoa, 33-47, 331 yards and 2 touchdowns. A very good game from him. Achane was not able to run the ball, only 24 yards and a touchdown. They mostly relied on the pass. Tyreek Hill, 10 receptions, 115 yards and touchdown. Jalen Waddle, 9 receptions, 99 yards. Jonnu Smith had 1 target the entire game, and then in the overtime had 3 receptions for 44 yards and a touchdown. So they're starting to become better. I mean, Tyreek Hill's starting to get back. Jalen Waddle's looking into form. So we'll see what they do going forward. But they're still 2 games behind and almost barely lost to the Jets. So that could end their season. But good game from both teams. The Jets are now 3-10, hoping to get a better draft pick at this point. On to what looked to be kind of a game of the week was the Falcons and the Vikings. Now, Falcons have lost, I believe, 2 in a row at this point, and then this loss here to the Minnesota Vikings was their 3rd in a row. So they lost 42-21. It was a big time win for them, for the Vikings, to stay kind of in that race for their division, as well as in the playoffs. I mean, they're already in the playoffs, I believe, but they're looking for that division. They want to face Detroit. Let's go over to the Falcons. Falcons have not played well. Kirk Cousins has thrown 0 touchdowns and 8 interceptions in the past 3 games. So that tells you all you need to know. Kirk Cousins, 23-37, 344 yards and 2 interceptions, sorry. Bijan Robinson, 22 carries, 92 yards and a touchdown. Tyler Algier, 9 carries, 63 yards and a touchdown. They're able to run the ball effectively. They're able to pass the ball effectively. It's just careless mistakes have cost Kirk Cousins and this team. But Minnesota was able to fight on offense, and they were just able to go off here. I mean, Sam Darnold, 22-28, 347 yards, 5 touchdowns. Very good game from him. Aaron Jones, 13 carries, 73 yards and a touchdown. And then their big boys, Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson. Addison, 8 receptions, 133 yards and 3 touchdowns. Jefferson, 7 receptions, 132 yards and 2 touchdowns. They were able to hit their big guys there. Atlanta's defense has just played terribly, in my opinion. At the start of the season, I mean, with the players they got, they should be a lot better, and they are the worst at getting sacks and pressures. They're not able to do anything to their number 1, number 2 guys. This is going to hurt them, and that actually took them. They were a 2-game lead on the division against the Bucs. The Falcons were, and now they are 1 game behind the Bucs for their division. So that really hurts them in the long run. I'm not really going to go over the Saints and Giants game. Sorry to those fans, but I feel sorry for you if you had to watch that game. It was terrible. I will tell you a couple things about this game that they weren't really the storylines of the game. It was more extracurricular. There was a plane that went over the New York Giants stadium that said, for their GM to quote unquote fix their stuff without the word fix. Well, it was fix. It just had another cuss word on that. Because the Giants have played so poorly, they're not a very good franchise. They're falling apart, and they're going to continue falling apart for the next couple of years. And then come to find out, too, that there was actually a person on the Giants that paid for an OnlyFans girl's ticket to be at this game and to flash the other team, which was the Saints, so that they would get distracted. Saints were still able to put up 14 points, but they looked a little distracted at some points, so I guess that was a win. They missed the field goal in the end to tie the game. It was a blocked field goal for the Giants, so they weren't able to tie the game. Funny joke was that the OnlyFans girl that was there flashed the Giants when he was trying to kick. That's why. That really didn't happen, but that's the running joke of the game. Now, almost an upset of the week was the Panthers and Eagles. Now, the Eagles are favored by 14, guys. 14. And I knew going into this game with how Carolina's been playing, I don't think that 14 is going to hold up. But, Bryce Young played really well. He did have one interception, which was a tough pill to swallow for him. But 19 to 34, 191 yards, touchdown, interception. Still a really good game from him. Chuba Hubbard, 26 carries, 92 yards, and touchdown. Thielen, being as good as he is, 9 receptions, 102 yards. He was kind of the catalyst for the team. It was a close game. I really thought that the Panthers were going to pull it off, to be honest. They had a chance at the end, but one of the rookie receivers dropped the ball on a game-tying touchdown, which really affected the trajectory of the game. So, Eagles were able to hold on to the win, 22-16. They're 11-2, but honestly, they're not. In my opinion, they're not really a threat of a team. If you can limit Saquon Barkley, and even in this game here, they didn't limit Saquon Barkley, but they were able to nullify as many of his carries to where they focused on the pass game. And I'll tell you why here. So for the Eagles, Jalen Hurts, 14-21, 108 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 4 sacks. So if you put all their focus on trying to pass and limit Saquon, you can easily beat the Eagles. Saquon's their guy. The difference between Saquon and Derrick Henry is Derrick Henry is very utilized, but we can utilize the pass game better than the Eagles can. They use the tush push, which, they did get a touchdown with Jalen Hurts on, but, A.J. Brown had 4 receptions, 43 yards. It was not a good game passing, and even right now, A.J. Brown is fighting and taking shots at his own quarterback, which to me is amazing because, I know that there's a difference between I'm the star player, I want the ball, like give it to me, like motivation, and then there's the crying aspect of things. So they need to fix their situations going forward because, the Eagles have a tough game next week against the Steelers that, I really want the Eagles to win because it'll help the Ravens, but I don't know. The Ravens are one of those teams that we can play well against good teams, and we can also watch ourselves shoot ourselves in the foot. So, but Saquon had another good game, 20 carries, 124 yards. So that was good for him, but not really much else. This was a sloppy game from the Eagles, and they were lucky to come out with the win. Steelers and Browns. Steelers get redemption, now 10-3. 27-14 was the win. Again, basically their defense really, really stepped up and played. Russell had 158 yards. They were put in good positions to get scores and stuff and then limit a lot of other stuff from the Browns, but figured that this was going to be the win. So good game from the Steelers. They're 10-3, but now they're going to go into their collision course where they play where they play the Eagles, Ravens, Chiefs, Bengals, which those are all 4 top tier teams. Even the Bengals can put up points. So we'll see on that. On to the last Sunday morning game, which was the Bucks and the Raiders. I thought this game was going to be pretty close, but they ended up pulling away towards the end, which was good for me. I like the Bucks. I like Baker Mayfield. I like how he's a turnaround story, in my opinion. But let's go over it. So, Aiden O'Connell for the Raiders, 11 of 19, 104 yards, and an interception. He ended up hurting his leg. It was in an air cast, so he's probably going to be done for the season. Desmond Ridder, 12 of 18, 101 yards. So, able to pass the ball okay, I guess. Sincere McCormick, the running back for the Raiders, was actually their biggest threat. 15 carries, 78 yards. Very good for him. Really amazing story that he's pushed it through, and he's hoping to take over the spot as the star running back. So watch out for him in the fantasy playoffs here soon. Backup tight end Mikael Myers, 7 receptions, 68 yards. Jacoby Myers, 7 receptions, 67 yards. Brock Bowers, not as much a factor, 3 receptions, 49 yards, which was very interesting. But let's go on to Tampa Bay. Baker, 18 to 29, 295, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Those 2 interceptions were the main reason that there is 10 points on the board for the Raiders. This looked dominating at the start. Rashid Rice was able to run the ball very well. 17 carries, 90 yards, touchdown. So see how well they do. Cade Otton, Mike Evans were able to kind of be the bigger ones with 70 and 69 yards. So definitely will be interesting going forward to see. But Tampa Bay is now over 500 at 7-6, and now they hold the division with the Falcons at 6-7. Score was 28-13 there, which was very good to see for the Bucks. Now on to our afternoon games. You got the Seahawks and Cardinals battling for the division. At this point, Seahawks were up 1 game on every one, pretty much going into the start of this game, and they were hoping to get kind of a more breathing room with a lot of other teams at this point, because the Rams and 49ers are not that far behind, and they're very big powerhouse teams. So we'll have to see what happens there. But Geno Smith had a good game, 24-30, 233 and a touchdown, but it mainly relied on their run game, which Zach Charbonnet, Kenneth Walker was out for the Seahawks, that Zach Charbonnet was able to step up and really provide a good breath of fresh air in the run game. 22 carries, 134 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That really propelled them in the first quarter, and they kind of just coasted into the rest of the game that they were able to win. Jackson Smith and Jigba is starting to become a bigger factor on this offense. 5 receptions, 82 yards, a touchdown. DJ Metcalf, 4 receptions, 49 yards. So, the run game was really effective, that they kind of just were able to push over the hump and win 30-18. Cardinals played well, but they ended up making careless mistakes in Kyler Murray throwing 2 picks. But, Kyler Murray, 25-38, 259, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Just wasn't enough to help. James Conner was able to run the ball effectively, 18 carries, 90 yards, and was able to catch a receiving touchdown. But it was a tough game for the Arizona, because now they're 2 games back of the division, and at this point in time, the division is the only way the Rams, the 49ers, the Cardinals, the Seahawks kind of make it. Maybe the Seahawks could make it in the wild card, but highly doubt that. The wild card seems pretty locked at this point, but you never know. But good win for the Seahawks. They're able to put up some cushion, because the Rams are 1 game behind now after a huge upset, which we're going to talk about right now. And then the 49ers are 2 games behind. But let's go over the biggest upset of the week, which was the Rams and the Bills. Now, this was a slugfest. I mean, Rams won 44-42. It was a huge game. Rams offense looks as amazing as ever. They're starting to click like they did last year in the second half of the season, so watch out, because they're very good. But the Bills were able to come back with now reigning, MVP Josh Allen. I think Josh Allen is the MVP. I know Saquon's very valuable, but Josh Allen's had an amazing year, and in this game, he did everything he could to help his team win. Their defense was just played terribly. But they had a chance at the end where there was a bad call on the coach. But we'll get over that in just a second. Let's go over some stats here. So now MVP after this performance from Josh Allen, 22 of 37, 342 yards and 3 touchdowns. Then Josh Allen ran 10 carries, 82 yards and 3 touchdowns. So he had 6 of their touchdowns. He did everything he could. He was the only real runner for them. They were able to pass the ball effectively. Shakir, 5 receptions, 106 yards and touchdown. Amari Cooper, 6 receptions, 95 yards. He did what he could, but it was a little too late. Matthew Stafford, 23 of 30, 320 yards and 2 touchdowns. Kyron Williams, 29 carries, 87 yards, 2 touchdowns. Puka, 12 receptions, 162 yards and a touchdown. Cooper Kupp, 5 receptions, 92 yards and a touchdown. Like, the main guys came out to play today, and this is what's scary about the Rams, is their run game, and then Puka and Cooper Kupp are just too deadly, and Matthew Stafford's a really good quarterback. If you can put up more points than the Rams, then yeah, you'll win, because the defense is not really there for the Rams. But there was a terrible play call by the Bills head coach, which, here's the thing. There's, I think, 40 seconds left in the game. No, there was a lot more time than that. I'm sorry. I don't know time-wise, but the Bills had 3 timeouts to where if they scored a touchdown, they don't have to onside it because all they have to do is stop the Rams 3 times, and they're good. Well, the head coach or the offense coordinator decided to run the ball at the 1-yard line and got stopped. So they had to use a timeout so that the clock would stop running. That is terrible coaching, in my opinion. And you may be like, well, they probably thought they were going to get in. It doesn't matter. You run the risk of not getting in by doing that, by running the ball. Now, you pass the ball 3 times. Stops the clock. Unless you throw it behind the line of scrimmage, there's no way that clock's going to keep running. And that's what really killed him. And then they used a timeout, which I thought was dumb too. Don't use the timeout. Just get back up on it, run it again, and go at that point. And so stupid mistake by their head coach that really kind of cost them the game. But Rams played really well. Very good outing for them. Bills are 10-3 now. They're 2 games back of the 1 spot with the Chiefs, which sucks because I know everyone in America wants the Chiefs to play the first round. I want them to play first round because I think they'll lose first round. If they play Denver, they will lose first round. I have a lot of confidence in that. But it was a really good game. Let's go on to the Blowout City Marathon here. I'm not really going to talk too much about this game. Bears, the 49ers. 49ers won 38-13. I mean, they were up 24-0 at half. Like, it was terrible. At the halftime, the 49ers had 319 yards, and the Bears had 4 yards. They had as many yards as they do wins in the first half. Just FYI. So, Caleb Williams, 17-23, 134 yards, 2 touchdowns, 7 sacks. Weren't able to run the ball, weren't able to pass. Yeah. Brock Purdy, 20-25, 325 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Able to run the ball with their backup, Isaac Geronimo, 15 carries, 78 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Juwan Jennings had a good game. George Kittle, 6 receptions, 151 yards. It was just a good game overall for the 49ers. Real blowout city there. On to the Sunday night game, Chargers and Chiefs. This was not the game we really wanted to see because, you have Chris Collinsworth in the booth who just loves talking about Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes had a pretty decent game but didn't do that much effectively. The Chargers actually came back and were up 17-13. 17-16, and the Chiefs had the ball to go down onto and kick a field. They had to go down and kick a field goal. Now, I'm going to look at the team stats here because I really want to. Wow, the Chiefs had more penalties. That's funny. But a huge key to this is when it comes down to the final play of the game, the Chiefs can do no wrong. And I mean literally. I didn't watch this game because I can't stand to listen to Chris Collinsworth. I can't stand to watch the Chiefs because watching their right tackle false start every time annoys me. There's a lot of teams that get illegal formation calls all the time, but the Chiefs don't get an illegal formation. They don't get a false start every time he jumps. The ball is not snapped yet by the time he has jumped his foot back because he's getting a head start. But I guess that's what you get when I swear they have a deal with somebody. I'm not going to say anything along those lines just because, they made a deed with somebody. I'll just say that because they're winning games that they shouldn't. They're playing terribly and barely winning, and it always comes down to little plays where it just seems like everything favors them. So I watched as there was on the play where they got the first down, there were 3 holding penalties in one. Yeah, you heard me right. 3 holding penalties on the left tackle, the left guard, the right tackle. But they don't call those. I don't know what they're looking at, but it just seems like there's always something to go on. But we'll get back to the game. Chargers lost to heartbreaking 17-19. Kansas City's 2 games up on the 1 seed, looking to cruise to the 1 seed. Chargers now 8-5 with the Broncos and the Ravens in the playoff spot. On to Monday night game. Not really going to go over this because this one already was favored that way, but Bengals beat the Cowboys 27-20. Bengals played a little sloppy, and the Cowboys actually should have won this game, but they have an idiot person on their punt return team because they blocked the special teams punt. When they blocked the special teams punt, no one on the Cowboys should ever touch the ball. There's no reason to. And one of the guys thought it was a good idea to touch the ball, and the Bengals recovered it. They were able to win the game. It was over at that point. But Bengals stay alive a little bit. They're 5-8, so they really need a lot of help. But it'll come down to next week for a lot of teams to see if the Bengals even have a shot at the playoffs. So yeah, kind of go from there. Ravens had a bye, so we're not going to really go over the Ravens. I'll talk about what the Ravens need to do at their game for their week 15, but we're just going to segue right into week 15 predictions, and then we'll kind of go over the Ravens as that goes. So all right, on to a big Thursday night game, guys. The Rams and the 49ers. See, both teams need this win. 49ers to stay alive, Rams to get closer to staying alive and staying with the Seahawks. Now, the 49ers are 2.5-point favorites, but the Rams are a really good team. So I don't know. I think that I'm going to lean a little more towards the Rams. I don't know why. Buffalo's defense is decent. 49ers defense is not as good as it used to be. And the Rams were able to put up 44 points. So I'm going to go with the hot hand in the Rams on this one. We're going to go into Sunday's games, and I'm just going to gamecast the Ravens-Giants. It's not like we need to talk about it, but so the Ravens in their bye week suspended their Devontae Johnson receiver, which he didn't go into the game against the Eagles, which really hurt us. But I think there just needs to be some talked about things with our team because we're 8-5. We really shouldn't be. There's no reason for us to be 8-5 at this point in time. So it is very tough to see that, but it is what it is. Now, us getting Michael Pierce back will be huge. Bateman hopefully will be okay. And so Kyle Van Noy for when we play, but we'll see. We just need to limit our mistakes. This is where we need to turn it up as a Ravens fan, is we have a pretty easy schedule to say going forward. We have the Giants. We have the Steelers, which they're a tough team. They beat us once. They just know how to play us. If we can win that game, that is a huge momentum shift. We play the Texans, which I'm honestly not as worried about because it's them. I have a feeling about them that they're just not the same team. And then we play the Browns, which We really need, if we can end 3-1 or 4-0, I am happy, very happy with that performance for us. So even if we were wild card, in the essence of we don't have a home game. So, but let's go on to it. Another huge game is the Colts Broncos. The Colts kind of need this to hopefully cement their spot in the playoffs. Denver is looking to pretty much put a lot of doubt on other teams. And what I mean to say by that is the Broncos are not supposed to be a playoff team. They're not. This is supposed to be a rebuilding year, figure out your quarterback. They're 8-5. They're going to have a lot of cap space next year. Like, they're a team that could be contenders next year if they play their cards right. Now, the Colts need to do this to survive, because if they are 6-8 and they lose to the Broncos, there's no way they're making the playoffs. They already have a tough road ahead of them too. So the Broncos really need this win to kind of set the tone, because the Broncos also have a tough schedule because they play the Chargers, the Chiefs, and Cincinnati after those. So that's where it's going to be a pretty tough matchup going forward for them. So they need to win this game for sure. This is a must win. I do think Denver will win. They're at home. Their defense is really good. They're not playing a very good offense, to where I think that they'll bounce back and really take this win. Chiefs and Browns. Chiefs will win because, they have that deal. So, yeah, it's tough. Bengals and Titans. Bengals will win. Commanders, Saints. Commanders will win. Derek Carr is out with an injury, so that's definitely going to make it more for the Commanders on that. Cowboys and Panthers. This is tough, actually. I think the Cowboys may sneak out a win, but this is tough because Carolina's been playing really good. So this is kind of more of a toss-up, which the records don't show it, but if you know, you know. Jets and Jaguars. Jets will win. Dolphins and Texans. Now this is the. Let me just check the morning games. This is probably yeah. For the morning games, this is the game of the week. Dolphins and Texans. The Dolphins need this to win. The Texans need to show that they are a playoff team, because they're 8-5, but they have not looked good at all on offense, as well as defense. So I'm really hoping the Texans win, because I would rather, if I'm in the wild card, I want to play the Texans. I just do. If I'm in the wild card, I don't want to play the Bills. I don't want to play the Steelers. I want to play the Texans. And that's not saying that I fear the Bills or the Steelers, but if you want to move on in advance and hopefully have somebody else shoot the Steelers or the Bills in the foot, go do that. And maybe, if the Bills and Steelers want to fight it out for that spot, go ahead, because I have no problem going against the Chiefs again. You need to just face your fears and just take on the big dog at that point. So I hope the Texans win, but this will be a close game. Now, for the afternoon games, there are a lot more afternoon games. Interesting. So you got the Colts and Broncos in the afternoon game. That's one game of the week in the afternoon. Then you have three more in the afternoon. So you have 4 afternoon stud games, in my opinion. That to me is amazing. So very happy to see that. Really love that. So you got this one's probably this. I don't know. I can't rank these guys. These are way too good. The Bills and the Lions. Now the Bills just lost to the Rams, which is very tough. Detroit barely squeaked out against the Packers. So I'm going to lean more towards Detroit, but the Bills are just one of those teams that, I don't know. They're weird. This is a toss-up game, guys. Steelers and Eagles. I'm going to go Eagles just because I don't think they're going to be able to. The Steelers aren't going to be able to stop this, and Eagles have a pretty good defense as well. So if they have Pickens, maybe it's a little closer, but if they don't have Pickens, there's no chance. Patriots and Cardinals. No one's going to really watch this game. Cardinals should win that game, but yeah. And then another great game is the Bucs and Chargers. Now, the Chargers kind of need to kind of win out as much as they can. The Bucs need to win to kind of make sure that they stay ahead in their division, because the Falcons have an easy game against the Raiders on Monday night, so the Falcons should win that, and Falcons do have the tiebreaker against the Bucs. So I'm going to go Chargers here, but this will be a very good game. Now on to the Sunday night game, which is the Packers and Seahawks. The Packers they don't really need to win this in essence. Like, they don't have huge aspirations going forward. They're 3 games back of Detroit. They're 2 games back of Minnesota. They don't really have a shot to get the division title. It's more of a playoff seeding for them at that point. But the Seahawks need to win this game because the 49ers are trying to take their spot. The Rams are trying to take the spot to where Seahawks really need to win this. So it's going to be a close game. I do think that Green Bay does have a better team that they will win. We got 2 Monday night games. Not the games that you really want to see, though, because you got Sam Darnold against, the Vikings against the Bears. The Vikings should win that one. And then the Falcons versus the Raiders. The Falcons should beat the Raiders easily. So that's kind of it for the previews and predictions for Week 15. Now we're going to go look at standings and wild card, because that is something that we're looking over here. So obviously the 1 seed is the Chiefs for the AFC. Bills are 10-3, so are the Steelers at 10-3, but the Bills have a better strength of schedule by a lot. Wow, I haven't looked at the strength of schedule. So if we look at the strength of schedule here, which is the SOS here, if you guys can see that. So I'll just go by percentage. So strength of schedule for the Chiefs, 46, Bills 48, Texans 42, Ravens 56, Chargers 49, Broncos 46. The Steelers have 39.6, about to be 40%. They have the easiest of schedules. So for them to be 10-3, that's why I don't give them too much credit. Now, when they go through the rubber match of the Bengals, the Ravens, the Chiefs, and the Steelers, and the Eagles, that will show what testament of, are they contenders or are they kind of going to be going to the playoffs a little broken? But so you got Chiefs, Bills, Steelers all at the top. There, the Texans are holding down their division at 8-5, but only up 2 games against the Colts. Then you have the Ravens at the 5 seed because we have the tiebreaker on the Chargers and the Broncos because we beat them both. And then Chargers have the better head-to-head against the Broncos, so they're the 6 seed, and the Broncos are the 7 seed. Now, the Colts, the Dolphins, and the Bengals are the only teams left that can be a part of this. The Colts, every team is 2 games behind except the Bengals, who are 3. So the Bengals have a really big long shot on that. But that's why the Broncos-Colts game is a huge game, because it puts them in a better spot. Miami has Houston this week, and if Houston wins, there you go. Every team is at 8 losses, to where if the Chargers win against Tampa Bay, if the Ravens win against the Giants, if the Broncos win against the Colts, every team is 9-5 in the playoffs, and every team 8, 9, and 10 are all at 8 losses. So that puts a 3-game window with 3 games left, to where there becomes huge tiebreakers at that point, to where the 8, 9, 10 seed can't lose a game, and the 5, 6, 7 can't lose one game. They only have to win 1 game. So it's huge. We'll see what goes down there, but should be very exciting. Now, we have the NFC, which the Lions are at the top spot at 12-1, Eagles 11-2, Seahawks 8-5, Tampa Bay 7-6, and then you got Vikings 11-2, Packers 9-4, and Commanders 8-5. Which there are still a lot of teams. I know that the Rams are actually only one game back of the 7th spot, but the Rams do have tough schedules. I think they still have to play the 49ers again. It's going to be tough for them. If the Commanders, let's check the Commanders' schedule really quick. They have the Saints, the Eagles, the Falcons, the Cowboys. So, I think they beat the Saints. The Eagles are going to be tough. I think that if they can beat the Falcons, they're pretty much guaranteed at that point. But let's look at the Rams here. The Rams' schedule, they have 49ers, Jets, Cardinals, Seahawks. So they have a lot of division games going forward. So it's gonna come down to the wire for them. So a lot of teams are hoping that some of the big teams falter, but the NFC is more locked than the AFC is at this point. But yeah, that's it for this week. It was a very good week of games, and then for week 15, we're going to have some great games before Christmas. The Christmas seasons becomes kind of upon us there. But for the Ravens, they need to get out of their own way. They could be one of the top teams in football. They just shoot themselves in the foot way too much with penalties, with offensive line not helping, and then just costly little errors that diminish our team. Well, I hope everyone is having a great day whenever you watch this. I post on Wednesday, but some people will like to watch it at a later date. It's going to be a good week of football going forward. Got a good couple weeks. Man, it is week 15 already. Time really flies. Got this week, which is the 4th week. So we got 4 weeks left of football, and then we get to the playoffs. So very excited to see what happens. But podcast again is live on Wednesday at 12. Post an episode every week. I'll make sure it's posted on my Instagram page. Haven't been doing that recently, but I will going forward. Just have a lot of life stuff that I'm doing at this point. My podcast is on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube as always. Make sure to like and subscribe whatever platform you prefer. Again, any questions, any teams you want me to talk about besides the Browns, I'll talk about it. Making sure that I'm taking your questions or what you want to talk about into consideration. Also, All Music and Sound is brought to you by my brother-in-law, Justin. So, Justin, thank you for that. Well, Ravens Nation, thanks for joining me on this episode. Until next time, stay fierce, stay loyal, and keep rooting for that purple and black. I will see you next time on The Ravens Call.